Greetings, I'm Dike Rostant. Welcome back to the TTT News. We are going to be talking about a water-based process that is alkaline hydrolysis. And to do that, we have a young gun in the business who is taking the final rites process by storm and zesting up the thing. Managing Director of Dennie's Funeral Home Limited, Cochese Dennie, he joins us to speak about aquamation in addition to other things. Welcome, Mr. Dennie. How you do?
Well, thank you so much. I'm fine. And yourself?
I'm all right, thank you. But I have a question for you, like a soca artist. I remember someone seeing your photo and saying, but this fella still have milk on his face. How he get into the funeral business? So let's start with that, thank you.
Okay. The funeral industry, how I get into the funeral industry? I got into the funeral industry highly due on curiosity. I was curious about the industry at a young age. And at 16 years old, I went and applied for a job at a funeral home in Belmont. That funeral home is now closed down because the owner passed away a few years ago. And I got through with the job. And, and after getting the job, I just really like the idea of helping people, because the mere fact of getting the opportunity to provide comfort to people in the time of grief, it actually makes me feel good. It actually makes me feel like I'm serving a greater purpose. And that is how I end up into the industry. And from there, I started improving until I eventually opened my own funeral home, which is now Dennie's Funeral Home.
But when you say you're just curious and you want to get into, I know I was fully expecting you to tell me that your family was involved in this, and this is something that you were going through and you were kind of groomed to get into it. What were your friends and peers telling you when you say, hey, this is what I want to do,
Yeah. Well, when I started at 16 years old. So at 17 years old, I would have gotten my license, and I was attending Trinity Mocha at that point in time. And I would have gone to funerals in the morning time and go to school in the evening time with a hearse. And I would have been a whole laughing stock, because my friends in school saying a whole hearse, everybody coming to school with a can, stuff like that. And I come into school with a hearse. But I was never disturbed by it. I was never, although they would make jokes and stuff. One thing I always used to be happy about is that after school, when all my other friends who had cars, everybody begging for a drop from them, no one would have asked me for a drop. So I always was a lone ranger. But after all the fun and jokes about it, everyone would have seen the passion I would have for it, and everyone would have given me that support. Everyone who was around me would have always given me that support and encouraged me. Even when I was attending university, I attended University of Trinidad and Tobago, UTT. And there are days that I would have exams and I would go to school and right after my exam, I leave and I go and attend a funeral. Yeah, and everybody would have been so when people saw the hearse in the car park, they come, hey, who driving this? Who driving this? So I would have gotten very popular in school without even wanting to be popular. Yeah, but everyone has their views on it. But one thing I could gladly say is that the people who was around me at that point, they would have totally support me.
And I guess that also speaks to strength of character, because it's easy, because the jokes can write themselves, because you say you are going to school with a hearse. And yes. I could see people driving, but wait now, but this man is a Kobo and all of these sorts of things. But in terms of, at 16 though, you said you were able to apprentice and be a part of this. And so what kind of information was the gentleman who took you on giving to you? What were some of the things that he was saying, apart from just saying, okay, well, this is what you do with the body, this is how you handle yourself? So, because like you said, there was that passion that was very evident with you. So what were some of those things that they were saying to you?
Right. So the gentleman that I started working for, he himself didn't have much knowledge about the funeral industry. And because I had that passion and that urge to learn a lot about the funeral industry, I started doing my own research. So plenty of times, as much as he would have educated me, plenty of times I would have educated him a lot as well, right? But I would have gone on to work for another funeral home as well, which is based in Couva, and they would have educated me a lot. I would have, from conversations and then from my own personal research and so on, is where I would have gained a lot of knowledge. And then I recently came back from Atlanta. I had went to Atlanta to attend school to do a associate degree in funeral services and embalming.
Does the fact that you're so passionate and you want to learn and you're trying to learn more, does that make you a little more adventurous? Because I can see, okay, well, there's some other brands that may say this is the way we do things, and we have a certain energy about us, as opposed to having a man sit down in a chair, people by the bar. Where does that come from?
My tagline for my funeral home is every life is unique, therefore every funeral should be unique. And I simply believe that every funeral that we do, it should be a reflection on someone's life, right? We can't have a gentleman who on a daily basis, they sit by a bar and relax every day. They sit by a bar and drink every day. But when they die, we carry them to a church. I totally understand if that is the family wishes, right? And we will facilitate that. But if the family wish to say, hey, this man, this was his lifestyle, and I want you to do his funeral with his lifestyle in the way he lived his life, then I'm totally for that as well. And so that is why where you would see those funerals. So, and I think that actually with doing those sort of funerals, that actually brings a lot of comfort to the grieving relatives, because they actually get to remember their relative in this lifelike position and this lifelike environment. A lot of times you go to funerals and funerals seem to be sad, everyone is crying. But now where I have started revolutionizing funeral is that people seeing a corpse now at a funeral, they are more happy, because I always tell people every time we do a program, those funeral pamphlets, we never say mourn the life of the person, we always celebrate this person's life, right? And every funeral that we do, people are supposed to be, as much as it may be a sad moment, thinking, hey, I'm never gonna see this person, in the physical realm and so on. We could always say, hey, at least this person get a good send off. This is what the person like, and this is what we did for him in his remembrance or her remembrance. So if it's one thing I do, I never turn down a relative's request. No matter what, if a relative have any request, we are there to facilitate it. And also with those adventurous funerals that we do, I am actually trying to show the public there are different things. We don't always have to be traditional. There are way different things, because there are plenty other funeral homes in the country that people would say, well, we do embalming. But then I put a dead man to sit on a chair, properly embalmed, and then everybody is surprised. That shouldn't be a surprise to anyone if everyone says they does embalming. So, so that is the thing I was just highlighting to the public as well. This is what could be done, and I really wish that everyone get to celebrate their life in a manner that they would like to celebrate it. Because we do traditional funerals as well. When I say traditional funerals, regular funerals with people.
That is a question that I wanted to ask. I said, but is only zest, is only adventurous thing that you're doing? Do you keep
No. We do traditional funerals. We do traditional funerals as well, and with those traditional funerals, where people will lie in a casket. As I tell you, any request that a relative has, that is what we do. But my whole thing of my funeral home is that the service we deliver to people, that is what I just want to make sure that is there. I want to make sure that when somebody finish a transaction with us, that they could see me in the mall, or they could see me at a food court and say, hey, this funeral passed off well. And these are things that you always say, but how come somebody can walk up to you and say the funeral passed off well? But it shows that, that whatever it did for them, that it brought comfort to them. And in each and every funeral that I conduct and my staff conduct, we ensure that we provide comfort. We are there every step of the way with the relatives. So I actually train my staff in a way to think like every relative that we deal with that is facing a death, we make it our business to put ourselves in their shoes. So we think like if it was our parent that passed away, if it was our grandfather that passed away, how would we feel? And hence that hence at every time everyone comes to a funeral with us, there's that special touch, right? Something that I started doing in funeral that I saw lots of people copying, and I'm grateful that they would have copied it. A lot of times that we go to funerals, we go to the graveside, people will be looking for a bottle of water, they're looking for somebody who's selling water. And that's something that I started doing. We started providing refreshments, complimentary refreshments to persons to make sure that when you're at a graveside, you can't even think about, because again, as I tell you, I try to put ourselves in each person's shoes. So I don't want to attend a funeral, someone passed away for me, I'm there crying, but I want a bottle of water. I can't even get a bottle of water because the cemetery is located now where that there's no water selling nearby.
Mr. Dennie, why it's only like it's a kind of all-inclusive party that you organize? And what is he really telling me about? But at the same time, on this note, we take a short break. When we return, we continue because we didn't start to talk about aquamation as yet. And that is where I want to go when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are speaking with Mr. Cochese Tyler Dennie, the managing director of Dennie's Funeral Home. And just before we get to aquamation, Mr. Dennie, do you get pushback from some of the other more established funeral homes? You just said that there's some things in terms of like affording people bottled water and these kind of things that you've seen start to spread in terms of like that practice. But do you get pushback from some of the more adventurous send-offs that Dennie's Funeral Home would do?
I no need to tweet my own horn, but I think we are the most established funeral home in the country. And yes, of course, we do get some pushback. We do get some, but I always say everyone has their own perspective. And if any relative that comes by us, any type of funeral that they want, I want them to know that we are able to facilitate them.
And aquamation, what is it? Define it for me, please.
Right. Aquamation, by definition, it's a chemical process in which we use the process of alkaline hydrolysis to break down the remains of a deceased person into the natural realm, into ashes.
And what's the difference between aquamation and having, say, like a funeral pyre? Or right. Cremation, rather.
The difference with aquamation as compared to funeral pyre, aquamation uses water to actually break down water and mineral salts to break down the deceased person, whereas with a funeral pyre, it's just a flame base. Aquamation, in comparison of a funeral pyre or indoor cremation, uses 90% less energy compared to indoor cremation. Aquamation compared to a flame-based cremation emits zero pollution to the environment, whereas with flame-based cremation, we are constantly polluting the environment. It's way cheaper, it's more practical compared to flame-based cremation. And aquamation has been along for a very long time. Back in 1900s, they would have used aquamation for pets. And then after we started revolutionizing it for humans. So hence they have now come on stream with it for humans with proper equipment to use. The reason that we are seeing a lot of countries are looking at aquamation, and the reason that I am looking at aquamation is the mere fact that it saves the environment. We want to make sure that we doesn't leave a high carbon footprint in the environment. We want to make sure that even in death, that we still protect the environment. Because we have children, we'll have great-grandchildren, we'll have other generations to come. And we want to make sure that when they are inhabiting the earth, that they have a good earth to inhabit. You know, years ago, we always hear, and still up to this day, we hear the ozone layer as a whole, But I always think that if people would have seen it physically, then they would have understand what the definition of the ozone layer being damaged really means. But because it's gases we're speaking about, people doesn't get the artistic part of it to see what's really happening. And plenty of times they go outside and we complain, the place making so hot, or you're seeing so much different changes in the weather. And it's all because of damages that would have happened to the ozone layer and pollution that would have happened to the environment over a period of time. So I think within that this aquamation that we keep speaking about, I think even in that we get an opportunity still to protect the environment.
And that is one of the requests that Desmond Tutu had in terms of like being able to be sent off to be honored. Yes. His passing and transition observed, but at the same time being one with Mother Nature. But Mr. Dennie, if this is so good, how come we don't have it yet? What's some of the infrastructure that's needed to establish this practice in Trinidad and Tobago?
The infrastructure that is needed in Trinidad and Tobago is the same infrastructure that is needed in South Carolina, where they have commercialized aquamation. Aquamation actually happens in a machine. It's a tube-like vessel. The deceased person is placed in there. The machine is tilted at an angle, and it's heated to just about boiling point temperature, 100 degrees Celsius. It's heated. It uses about 100 gallons of water to decay an average size individual. The size of the person will determine how much water is used and how much mineral salt is used. And the machine could be set up just as anywhere within the country, right? The thing about the machine, the reason it can be set up as anywhere, it's simply as setting up an AC unit, because an AC unit doesn't emit any harmful gases to the environment. The same goes for an aquamation machine. It doesn't emit any harmful gases to the environment. So we have a cemetery in the middle of Port of Spain. We could put an aquamation machine there. We could put several aquamation machines there. And it's actually not interfering with the environment or the daily lives of the persons that are passing by it or anything of the sort. It doesn't use that much energy. So we can't even say that we can't put it close to a gas station. We can't put it close to a power plant because of the fact that it doesn't use that amount of energy. That is why it could be placed anywhere. So it's basically you need a room where you could put the machine in, where you have proper drainage, proper running water as well, and the machine can be set up just as well as anywhere.
Now, see that running water you're talking about, that leads me to two questions. One, is people soup you're making, Mr. Dennie? And two, and 1.1 in terms of like how much, when you're finished, how large are the remains? Is it something that you can put into an urn? Do you get it into a powder form? And I also want to know what kind of time process this takes. How long does it take? What's the duration?
Okay, right. So, well, it's not literally liquefying persons. The aquamation process simply, it mimics the process that is done in burial. It's just it's happening at a faster rate. So when someone is buried, water will flow over the person and they will decay, leaving their skeleton behind, right? That is the same thing that aquamation is doing. When the skeleton is left behind, the skeleton then goes into another part of the machine where it is crushed and comes into ashes, right? The benefit of it also is that in terms of the ashes, if you have a standard size cremation urn, you would need about 2, because you will get more ashes, because nothing is being let off into the environment. No dust is being let off. No ashes is being let off into the environment. So hence you get more ashes for the person. The ashes is purely the person, so we don't have to worry about that the person casket was burnt with it, and we then have to sieve out which is casket from the person. So you actually get more ashes compared to a flame-based cremation. And also the process, one aquamation process of one deceased person roughly takes about 6 to 8 hours. And again, it's dependent on the size of the person, but on average, about 6 to 8 hours. Whereas compared to flame-based cremation, which would take about 3 hours.
That is actually a great deal shorter than I would have thought. But how do people contact you, Mr. Dennie, in terms of saying, okay, well, so take me through the steps of reaching out to Dennie's funeral home, saying, okay, well, this is what I want, this is what the person was like, and creating, and what was it, a bespoke experience for the send-off?
Okay, Dennie's Funeral Home is on Facebook. You could get us on Facebook at Dennie's Funeral Home. Also Instagram, Dennie's Funeral Home TT. Our website, Dennie's Funeral Home TT as well. We are located at Lucian Road, Belmont, Valley, Belmont. And we have a landline number that is 24/7. Even if you don't have a funeral to plan, our number is also a number where you could call for suicide. We have a suicide prevention number as well, which is the same number as our business number. So we encourage people that you might not have a funeral to plan, but you might be feeling down and you might want someone to just say a word of prayer with you, or you might just want someone to talk to and to give you some encouragement. And that number is 621-2628. 621-2628. So remember, our business is not just about we dealing with deceased person and we are using our number simply for persons that passed away and so on. But we also provide it in that way that if someone has going through depression, someone needs someone to talk to, our number is 24/7. You call us 2 in the morning, 4 in the morning, someone will be on that end of the line to answer. And if you want that person to say a prayer with you, that person is there to say a prayer with you as well.
We want to thank you so much, Mr. Dennie, in terms of giving us that information. And once again, Facebook page, as well as the number 24/7-621-2628. Cochese Tyler Dennie, Managing Director of Dennie's Funeral Home. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, I'm Dike Rostant. This has been In Depth with me. Thank you so much for joining us.